Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode from my How Do I series. My name is Amia Serrano and I'm a fashion stylist. On today's How Do I episode, I'm going to talk about how do I set my rates. What's your rate? What's your budget? Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term rate, it basically means how much do you charge to style. And as a stylist, we all have different rates because we're all doing different things. We all have different types of experiences, so it just all depends on that. There's also other details you have to put in consideration when giving your rate. How many talent there are, like how many models, how many people you're dressing or styling, if it's full looks, if it's half looks, if you're gonna need accessories, or if you're just gonna need shoes, how much time are you spending on set, how many looks do you need to style, what is it for, how much prep days are you gonna need, how much wrap days are you gonna need, and do you feel like you're gonna need assistance because you're gonna need an extra rate, so to speak, for them. So you can tell yourself how much are you willing to be on set for X amount of hours for X amount of dollars. You can start off by saying that's your set day rate, and then you can have set prep day rates, like how much do you charge just to prep for a project, and then how much do you charge to wrap for that project, and then give yourself enough budget to hire assistants to help you, and then you can kind of figure out who gets what depending on the assistance rate, or if it's just an intern and they're working for free, but you're gonna cover like gas and mileage and parking and all that. There are some stylists out there who do charge hourly rates. Sure, they're fair because you have to take in consideration how much time you're actually putting into prepping, because as a stylist, our time starts as soon as we get confirmed for the job. Another way of doing this is asking a mentor stylist that is mentoring you, or reaching out to other fellow stylists that you talk to, or even ones that you don't, just shoot them a DM. I feel like it's easier to do that nowadays, is shoot them a DM or an email and say, hey, how much would you charge for something like this? And then they're gonna ask you for the details, because for stylists, our prices range from like here to here. It just all depends on the details. You can have set rates for the days, but then you have to put other things into consideration. Like, are you gonna need hotel? Are you gonna need airfare? Are you gonna need gas and mileage? Are you gonna need more supplies for this shoot? Are you gonna have to purchase some things? There's just so much. So make sure you get all of that information when you get onto a project, so you know what kind of rate you can set. Because you don't want to get into a project where you lowball yourself and then you're just like, man, that was so much work, or this is more work than I expected. I shouldn't have charged them that much. Like, don't be afraid to tell your rate. And remember, rates can always be negotiated. It's never really cut and dry. In the beginning as a stylist, you're gonna be getting on some projects where you're like, it definitely was not worth that. Like, I think about some stuff that I was on back in the day and I'm like, I would never do it for that much, but you're just starting out. So you're like building, so you're like, I'll take anything and everything. But you're also learning like, okay, that's a rate I'm not gonna take for a project like that. Another way of setting your rate is, say it's for a test shoot and they're willing to pay you for that. That's common and not common. Say you wanna base your rates off of looks, then you can charge per look is another way, and that's something that you can tell yourself, okay, I'm comfortable and okay with getting paid this much for charging this much for a look. And then maybe even calculate in what's the minimum amount of looks you'll take for that rate. Till this day, I get like some anxiety when trying to negotiate rates, because it's like, this is how much I'm gonna charge, this is what I'm comfortable with, but then you're like, I really don't wanna lose this job, so maybe I'll just do it for a little. But believe me, when I used to do that, it was like lowballing myself. It was hurting myself in the end. But when it comes to negotiating, just be mindful of the negotiation. If it's just not working for you, then be honest about it. But if you're in a start out place and you're like, let me just do it, then just do it. But then there's times where you're gonna negotiate maybe a couple hundred down just to do this project, because you know it can be a long-term relationship where they keep hiring you. So that's another thing to think about when you're setting your rates, is if you're gonna take the rate this time only and you could see it as a future relationship of working with them ongoing, then take it for that rate and then negotiate it later, saying, hey, we work so well together. I actually do charge this much. So can you guys do it this time? Nice to have those base prices set up so you have an idea of where you want to have a starting point or your rate. Remember that you're not always going to get the same rate for every project. I know with regular 9-to-5 jobs, it's like I have my hourly rate, I worked 40 hours a week, I'm going to get this every 2 weeks. Doesn't work like that with us. It changes, it varies, because again, it depends on the details. Also, budget for that project. So they may not even have the budget for your rate. But again, that's when negotiations take place and you're like, okay, I'll do it for this much. Another thing to think about too is what's the minimum you'll take for a project like that? So you know, okay, if we go under this much, I'm not gonna take the job. So you're just not stressing about it and like losing sleep over it. Believe me, I'm still figuring out my rates till this day. Now I have some more how do I questions being answered every other week here on my channel. So make sure you share, like, and subscribe for more.